Hi, I'm Jacqueline O'Neill, and welcome to the auxiliary lesson for week 2, which is the week of the Aleph and the Bet. So, we're going to take this time to speak about a word in the Bible, and in fact, it's the first word in the Bible. It's the word Bereshit, and Bereshit in the English would be translated into 3 words: in the beginning. Remember, we've learned about bet being at the start of the word can mean the word in, and then reshit would be in the beginning. So Bereshit, there's the Jews have a lot of different philosophies, I'm certain, as you begin to realize. And so they ask the question of, why did God start the alphabet, or the Torah, with the second letter in the alphabet, not the first? Why didn't he start it with the Aleph, the word that, or the letter that represents him? And so the Jews look at this and they say, God is trying to tell us that the Torah is for and about his creation. Creation is the temporal dwelling place of man. And so it is in the Beit, the house that God has set up, that he begins the Torah. And so from there, he takes everything out from that. So everything in creation, everything in the Torah proceeds from the house that God has created for us. It comes out of that house. But then the Jews, they would look at this and they would say, but what's behind the tent? What's behind the bet that that God is using? And they would say, well, the first letter of the alphabet, the Aleph, would be over here. And so it is a hidden, silent Aleph that is behind this tent, meaning that God is expressing himself through his creation, through us, to all of the rest of the creation. And he is the silent, hidden power or being behind this whole thing that we are expressing, or that creation is expressing to us. So God is what is behind everything that is on this earth. And God made this world to be bet. The word bet, I think we went through this in the word bet, or the letter bet, but bet is the word for house or temple, dwelling place, tent, temporal dwelling place. It also is there's a root with it that means a firm foundation. So the bet is a picture of what God created with the earth. So he created this firm foundation for us to live on. That's the land. And then he also created a firmament above the earth with waters. And then we live in that space in between the two, on land, but we live in this space in between. And God, the Messiah, which you will learn about the letter Vav, the Messiah is that link between the two parts. God is the link between the heavens and the earth. And so this Beit that is at the beginning of Bereshit, the beginning of Scripture, is showing us this picture of what God created, of the heavens and the earth. So the question is then, what is inside of this Beit? We know what's coming out of the bait. We know what's on the opposite side of the bait, behind the bait. So what's in the bait? So the word Bereshit tells us this. So here we have the word bait. So the bet, the yod, and the tav. So that's your bayit, your house. And then here is another word. This is resh. This resh is the word that means head. So this is saying that God is the head of the house. So he's the head, he's the first, he's the beginning, the chief, full knowledge. Those are all things that are in this word. So in in Colossians 1 verse 18, it says, and he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have supremacy. And also in 1 Corinthians 11:3, it says, but I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. And so this is in the house. We're looking at the head. So, so this is one of the next prophecies that's in here. So you have in here the house, the big house. So, and then this is the Resh, which could be first. And then if you take these two, there's something I didn't tell you. In the Hebrew, in the Torah scrolls, this bait is drawn particularly large. It is extraordinary size. So like if the letters are like this size, it's like, like that much bigger. So it's an oversized bait, an oversized tent. So, and it also can mean a temple. The bait can mean a temple. So this could be a temple, and the first temple, and then this is Yod is the number 10, and Tav is the number 400, and so 410. So the first temple that was ever built was Solomon's temple, and his temple survived for 410 years. So within that first word of Bereshit, there is potentially prophecy that Solomon's temple would last for 410 years, which it did. So here's another prophecy in Bereshit. So God created us to have free will. And we talked about this somewhat in the introduction lesson. But so when he created us with free will, he needed to give us the ability to act in that free will. And so what do you need to determine whether or not someone's going to do what you've asked them to do? You need to have that free will. They need to have, like when we're raising children, we have periods of time when we're first with them that we watch over them and everything that they do, and we make sure that they're doing everything that we say. But then as they get a little bit older, we have to begin to give them some space and see what they're going to do with themselves, whether or not they're going to be obedient or if they're going to disobey and begin to do their own thing. And so in order to do that, we have to allow for three things to happen. First of all, you have to give them space. So you can't just be there watching them, because when you're there watching them, then they know that there could be immediate retribution. But if you're not there watching them, then that gives them that ability to do what they think they want to do in the situation. Another thing that you need time, so that the punishment is not immediate, or the response to what they've done is not immediate. They have to be able to think through and decide whether or not they want to follow through on something. And then the last thing that you need to determine whether or not someone's going to follow through on something is you need adversity. You need something that would cause them to not want to do it. And so, are they going to follow through on it, or are they not going to follow through with it? And so, God, when He created creation and put us into it, He created it in such a way that He gave us space, time, and adversity, or an adversary, that gave us the ability to choose something different, to see whether or not we're going to follow through on the things that He asked us to do, and whether or not we're going to be obedient to Him. And so, in this, the way that He did this is He created a garment. And this is one of the things that it talks about in the first word. And so, this word is bara, that means to create. Actually, in Hebrew, the first two words of the Bible are bereshit, bara. In the beginning, created. And so this is bara, to create. And then this is shiet, which means a garment. So He created a garment. So in Hebrews chapter 1, verses 10 through 12, it says, He also says, in the beginning, Lord, you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are a work of your hand. They will perish, but you will remain. They will all wear out like a garment. You will roll them up like a robe. Like a garment they will be changed, but you remain the same, and your years will never end. In Psalm 97, verse 2, it says, Clouds and thick darkness surround him. Righteousness and justice are the foundations of his throne. In 1 Kings 8:12, it says, Then Solomon said, The Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. In Deuteronomy 5:22, it says, These are the commands of the Lord, proclaimed in a loud voice to your whole assembly there on the mountain, from out of the fire, the cloud, and the deep darkness. And he added nothing more. And he wrote them on 2 stone tablets and gave them to me. God created a garment. He created a garment in darkness. Not that He is dark, but it's a relative term. There's a lot of relative terms in Hebrew. So God is light, but He wraps Himself in darkness. He is life, but He wraps Himself inside of the creation. The creation is this garment, and that garment will wear out, and eventually He will roll it up as a worn out garment and take it off. And then we will see Him truly for who He is at that coming of Christ. But until that point, He's behind this garment of the earth that He has created. And so He created a garment. Another thing that it talks about here actually is He created 6. So this is the Aramaic word for, this is the Aramaic word for 6. And so the Hebrew scribes and that went in and said, well, 6 what? So they found within a very short period of space within Scripture that they just started looking and saying, what is there 6 of here? And they found 6 olives. And this is a very interesting concept that came out of this. I think you'll be intrigued by it. So, say He created 6 olives, and Jews know that the letter Aleph can also be, if you write it out, remember we said that it also can be Aleph, which is 1,000. And so the concept that they came up with was he created 6,000. And this is talked about in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. It says, "Don't forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day." And so the Jews are saying God created the world in 6 days, and the day of the Lord is like 1,000 years. And so they said that each day is a 1,000-year segment of what God created. That he created the world to be a 6,000-year-old world. Not that started at 6,000 years, but that he has a plan for it, for 6,000 and a 7,000. And so this is what they came up with, is this distribution of the Alephs are to give us a clue of what these 6,000 years are. So the first 2 Alephs are found in verse 2, and they are in the phrase, "And the earth was without form and void." In Hebrew, that's bohu vavohu, which is also a very interesting thing, but we're not going to go into that right now. "And the Spirit of God rested on the face of the waters." So that's the first 2 Alephs. The next 2 Alephs come in the words, "Then God spoke." And then the third set of Alephs come in, "Let the light be, and there was light." So this is Jews, not Christians now, that are going to say these things. This is a Jewish belief system of people who do not believe in Jesus, the Messiah. And you're going to be blown away by this. This is what they get out of the word Bereshit. I'm going to do an actual quote from, I think, I'm trying to remember which Jewish website it is. I think it might be Chabad, but yeah. Anyways, it says, "This idea of leadership, teacher, and wonder can be connected to a fundamental concept of the Talmud." Remember that the Aleph meant the idea of leader, teacher, and wonder. We had talked about that in the Aleph course, if you need to go back and listen to that. The Talmud tells us that God created the world to exist for 6,000 years. The first 2,000 years are called tohu, or chaos. This is followed by 2,000 years of Torah, God said, and the final 2,000 years are the days of the Messiah, the Mashiach. What does this mean? Rashi explains that the first 2,000 years began with the first man, Adam, and this corresponds to the meaning of the letter Aleph, master, for the Midrash states that Adam caused all the animals and beasts to bow down to God, thus acknowledging him as master and creator of the universe. However, the era was qualified as chaos because the Torah was not yet revealed. And also, think about waters, chaos, Noah, that happened in the first 2,000 years. So the second 2,000 years, Rashi continues, begin with Abraham, and Abraham introduces the Torah, and then God speaks. And as the Talmud states, Abraham both learned and fulfilled the entire Torah long before it was physically given to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. His embracing of God's word inaugurated the era of the Torah, and thus the second meaning of the word Aleph, or teaching. So this would be from the time of Abraham all the way up to the time of after the Babylonian captivity and the time of the Maccabees. So that would be the time of the Torah, or and God said, all those prophets and everything in that time period. And then the final 2,000 years is considered to be the days of Messiah, like 2,000 years ago when Jesus came. The concept of Pella, the wonder era, has the potential to usher in peace and tranquility through the entire world. Here, at this final letter of Aleph, a teaching of Shem Tov, who's a rabbi, illuminates an interesting point. The Alter Rebbe suggests that the difference between the words Gola, and I think we showed you this before. Hold it one sec. This is Gola, and this is Gula, redemption. So exile and redemption is the presence of the Aleph. If one inserts the Aleph into the word exile, exile is empowered and transformed into redemption. And thus the final 2,000 years of creation, the era of the Messiah, Mashiach, is represented by the Aleph. Having been given the Aleph, the Jewish people are empowered to move from exile into redemption. The stages of God as master of the universe and as teacher blossom into the days of the Messiah, when God will be revealed at a wondrous level. All of this is contained in the letter Aleph. I thought that was interesting. Anyways, so God created 6,000 years, and the Jews see that as the time of chaos, the time that God spoke, and then the time of the Messiah. And then the 7,000 year is to be the time of God's rest. So, which the Christians would call the millennial kingdom. So, the millennium. So anyways, very interesting. Another thing here is God created thorns. Thorns, so this is another word that could mean thorns as well. In 2 Corinthians 12:7, Paul talks about the thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan. And so God created this thorn for us to have as our adversary. So he created the garment, which is the space, the earth. He created time, that's the number 6. So that 6,000 years for us to be kind of separated from him. I mean, he's still with him, but he's not like present here. The millennial kingdom, God is supposed to be like present, like New Jerusalem comes down out of heaven and God is on the earth ruling and reigning with us here. So he has this period of time though that he's not here. And then he creates an adversary, thorns, to begin to allow us as mankind to determine whether or not we're going to be obedient to him. So very interesting prophecy within that Bereshit. There's another prophecy in Bereshit. So this word is bar, and that is a son. And this word is a sheet, and a sheet means I will establish. And so he says in the first word of the Bible, I will establish a son. So he's saying he's going to bring his son, Christ, into the earth and establish him to be over this earth. Another prophecy that's in Bereshit is, right here, this, the bait, the rush, the yod, and the tav is berith, which means a covenant. And then this word here, shar, is fire. So it's a fire in the midst of the covenant. And we see this in Genesis 15, verses 17 to 18. God comes to Abraham and creates his first covenant with Abraham. And when he does so, he says he's creating a covenant for the whole world through Abraham and through his line. And what does he do? he splits some animals in two, and then he takes fire and he goes up and down between them to create that covenant. Abraham sleeps through the whole thing, but he sees these two torches going back and forth through these animals to create this covenant for him. So he prophesies this relationship with Abraham. So this whole world that God has created, the bet that God has created, is a stage to show off who he is, to reveal himself to all of creation. And he does it in the very beginning, in the first word, Bereshit. He says that. He says, I've told the end in the beginning. How much more is there of this in the Bible that we don't know about because we don't know our Hebrew? I hope you enjoyed that.